All right. Hello, everyone. Kyle, A0Z. Welcome to the new CW Operators Roundtable. Tonight, we have got Max in G7M from Utah here with us, and we're going to talk about work in DX and what you can do. We're going to talk about acronyms. We're going to talk about split. We're going to talk about zero beating. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff that we were talking about before we were on the air here. But I want to welcome my cast of characters that you have seen before. TJ, Big DXer, hello, who I can never remember your call sign, K9KJ.
Uh-huh. I was gonna challenge you on that. All right, what's my call sign?
K9KJ.
Oh, you are cheating. It's right there on the
No,
screen.
there's so many acronyms. TJ, KJ. There was
I
APRS. It
know.
was a sea of acronyms last Thursday. So
I know it's brutal. So, hello everybody. Here to hang out and watch some CW on the stream
yes,
here.
Vince. Hello. How are you?
Good after evening noon. I am wonderful. And how are you?
Good. 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 I think I need to turn my mic up. Um, and
Sounds
then
good.
Aaron hasn't haven't seen you in a while, but I'm watching you on the video, man. You've been cranking out the videos on the Parks on the Air. It's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Good to be here again.
Yeah. Um, First, if you got some questions, put question above or in the chat, and then your question, or tag me, and we'll get your question answered. Uh, Jason has a he has a question to start off. His question is, if I call CQ and no one hears it, will my wife still complain about the antennas in the yard? That is a yes. That is a yes. That's an automatic yes.
Yep.
um, so what we're going to do here is we're going to start at the very basic level for all of you new CW operators, and we're going to talk about whenever we say working DX, what do we mean? And so, Max, maybe that is. Oh, there you go, Tim. Very promptly. I didn't even see that. What is DX really? What is DX really?
Do you want me to jump in there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, and if I get
So
something
who
wrong,
is Max? Who is this guy?
Oh,
Kyle, you didn't
well,
intro him.
yeah, we did an intro. I mean,
NG something,
Max has
right?
been on my channel before. We talked to Max last Thursday about NC7J cluster servers. Max is my friend from Utah that is a big CW guy. How long have you been a ham, Max?
oh, I was licensed in '94. I'm feeling old.
Yeah,
So, but I was later on in life. So I was about 35 then. I think about that. So I'm 59 now.
gotcha. And you've been on some D expeditions, some big ones, haven't you?
Couple big ones, Djibouti, and then in Africa, East Africa. I wouldn't want to be there right now with all that stuff going on in the Red Sea,
Right.
but for some reason. And then more recently, Swains Island in the South Pacific,
Wow.
just in October this year or last year, 23.
How many QSOs do you remember you guys made in each one of those?
I think it was similar, ironically. In Djibouti, it was. I don't think we cracked 100,000. Just by that, I'd have to look. I can't remember. I think it was like 96,000, 98,000.
Wow.
Djibouti, don't hold me to that. But Swains, we missed out on 2 days due to some mechanical or weather problems and some other scheduling issues,
Yep.
or we would have easily hit the 100,000 QSO mark. I mean, that's like a kind of a milestone, but we had just under 93,000.
Wow. Wow. And whenever you go on these D expeditions, like how many people go, and what's the shifts like? Do you work in like 6 or 12 hour shifts, and then you what is that like?
Well, I think every expedition would probably do it differently. I mean, it's usually 24/7. You're there to make QSOs, for example. In Swains, I'll just tell you quickly. In Swains, we had two camps, usually 2 to 3 radios going in two different camps, and we had 10 operators, and we rotated predefined, rotated around a 5-hour shift, 4-hour shift, and a 3-hour shift. So while we were there, I mean, the minute we got there and got an antenna up, we started operating, and so your sleep schedule just doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
You might operate from 7 p.m. to midnight local time, and then be back up at 2:30 and operate another 4 hours from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. or whatever. That was a hard shift.
Yeah. And
Like the contest that just doesn't end, right?
Yeah, after 48 hours, right? It just keeps going. Yeah, and endless pile up too. Yeah.
Wait, isn't that a DXer's dream? No.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the thrill, right? That's why you do this. You want to be on that other end.
yeah, that's why people activate Parks on the Air locally, so they can kind of be that DX, so they can feel the rush of the pileup, right?
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, very similar. You're not going to be managing a big wide pileup, but all those skills come into play, and you just have to do it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of putting the time in, like anything, like learning any skill. You've got to put a lot of time in and practice, and it becomes to where it's not stressful, right? And it's easy going.
Yeah, yeah. One more question, and we'll get to Tim's question. What is DX really? So whenever you sign up to be on a DX expedition, obviously you need to have your chops in order. It's probably not for the new CW operator, and there's a lot of things that go into it. Some of these DX expeditions, they raise quite a bit of money to go to these exotic islands and whatnot. What is one of the hardest things that you think it is? What is one of the hardest things to be on a DX expedition?
To get to be invited, maybe, or
just I mean, once you're invited, what's the hardest thing to actually to operate whenever you're operating?
Like sleep deprivation, or
yeah. Well, I mean, if you may have somebody that loves sideband, right? And so that's their thing.
Yeah.
And that's easy. And then somebody who they can operate sideband, like I can do pretty well with sideband, but I'd rather do CW. So it varies, right? So being stuck on a sideband shift may not be a lot of fun if you're loving CW and vice versa.
Yeah.
I tell you what, operating FT8 is I mean, it's hard to stay awake because there's nothing going. You're just, we actually didn't automate anything. We always had somebody there, but we automated some 6-meter stuff, I think. But all the HF stuff, we had an operator in front of we didn't want to be that DXpedition that just automated FTA.
Yeah.
So you're just filling up a queue, keeping the queue filled up. We used the DXpedition mode with WSJT, but
you need a good mouse clicker.
Yeah, in a way though, sometimes you need a break, right? You could multitask too, and you could actually do CW and FT8 at the same time, or easier with sideband and FT8. Some guys would run 2 radios, like a SO2R kind of a thing.
Right.
Good idea.
All right. Well, let's get back to Tim's question. What is DX? Whenever we talk quite a bit about DX on this channel, and what really is DX whenever we talk about working DX? What does that mean to you, Max?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody else wants to jump in, don't let me go. Again, I mean, it's distance, right? You see it as distance, and it's all relative, right? Across town may be DX for somebody that's working some, microwave frequency or something, right?
Right. Yeah.
That across town may be DX, or across the country may be DX on 6 meters. By the way, this evening it might still be open. There's a 6-meter opening in North America.
Yeah,
by the way, today. And so that's kind of DX, right? I mean, just working the East Coast from Utah is kind of fun on 6 meters. Everybody likes that. So that could be DX. But I think the classic thing would be working some country. We say countries or entities other than your own country. So for us, right, we would be working somebody out of VE land or K land, and confirming a contact with them.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world, right? That would be DX, kind of the classic.
Is there
DX.
Is there I've always heard that the the crawl that sticks in everyone's butt is, is Canada and Mexico really DX?
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was going to come up.
Is it really DX?
It
Yeah.
counts for a DXCC.
I would have say yes, right?
Yep.
And so
It
does your
does.
own country, your own entity.
Yeah, Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, or
Alaska,
yeah, I mean, you have a slot there for Ks, and everybody has their own country too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Swain's was what, W8S, right? So
Yes. Yeah. So that
I mean that's
Swains is it's not a country, right? So
right.
that's where you kind of get into the ARL DXCC entity list.
Mhm.
It's in the American Samoa territory, but that's an entity. We just call it a country. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's it's DX, right?
yes.
Yeah, and
So what's a DXpedition, right? That's the other half of this question.
yeah, yeah. What are the? We talk a lot about also the DXCC, and what is that? That is that who actually it's a list of countries, right? That qualify for counting towards an award of DXCC. So, from what I understand, the DXCC, you have to contact 100 countries, right, to get your first DXCC. But there's people that have DXCCs on individual bands, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
what I don't understand is who maintains that list of DXCC entities.
And if somebody wants to take that, I'm not an expert. It would probably be good to have a card checker here, an ARRL card checker. They would have all the rules down. I mean, you can go and look up kind of the history of how the DXCC award came about for the ARRL. So it's kind of the most kind of recognized and kind of feather in your hat award for HF operating. And ironically, you can do it in a weekend nowadays. You could operate a big CW contest and probably do it over the weekend. I think I've done it a few times, but so it's the award, right? Everybody's kind of chasing their whole life, and they have what's called the honor roll, and depending on what entities or countries are valid at the current time, valid now as compared to because they've deleted entities, they've brought them back in. They have a list of so many entities that you have to get to be on the honor roll in 3 different modes. So you have phone, or effectively SSB, any phone mode, CW, or digital, which used to be RTTY, still is, and now it's mostly FT modes. So if you have DXCC on all 3 modes, that's kind of cool, and on multiple bands, that's cool too. But really, the big one is to have to be on the honor roll in all 3 of those modes, and that's tough. There's only like 2 people in Utah that have done that.
Wow.
So you've got 340 entities on all 3 modes. And then they also have a challenge award where you work countries in all 3 modes on each band. So that's like to get 3,000 of those credits, that's a huge milestone.
Yeah.
For example, I think I'm around 1,800. So some people just chase the country and then they're done. They don't care about working it on multiple bands or multiple modes, or the country on multiple bands and multiple modes. But some of us kind of, I'm not as religious as some people at chasing it, but I get caught up in it.
Yeah. Yeah. TJ, did you have a comment there?
I was going to say, I think you get some wallpaper credit for like 1,000. I think it was a breakdown 1,000, 1,500, something like that. So you get a little fancy little plaque, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the challenge, for the
challenge, yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, the operators that have achieved 3,000, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I don't know of anyone, at least I must not be hanging with the cool folks, I guess.
Well, we have a great suggestion in the chat. I mean, 3 modes should be called the Mike Key Mouse or the Mickey Mouse Award.
Oh,
Yeah, love
Well done,
it.
Ron.
That's a good one. Mike Key Mouse. Yeah, I like that.
finger, yeah.
All right, somebody's got to patent that one.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
So I have a friend who has 2,500, and he's been from Utah, and he's lived in other areas, but he has he's on the honor roll on all 3 modes, and he has 2,500 challenge slots. I think maybe 26 or 27. He's above 2,500.
Wow.
But I don't know if he'll be able to do 3,000 from Utah.
Wow.
It'd be a lot easier on the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get back into the DXpedition, and since you have been on a DXpedition, Danny's got a question here, and maybe we can just get into how would you work a DXpedition on CW. I know that there's quite a bit of different lingo and things that we were talking about before the stream, and I know that Aaron has probably got some questions about working DX. He says, what is the CW protocol for a DXpedition? That W5C, that's just called W5CI. Whenever we were talking before, we were talking about a lot of these DXpeditions, they work split. And maybe we should talk about, whenever you set up for a DXpedition, Max, and you're on the receiving end and you're calling CQ, what are some of the things that are going through your brain, and do you always work split? And what does working split really mean?
Yeah, maybe I ought to share my screen so just visually
sure.
we can kind of show that. So this is just an HDMI capture of Elecraft K4, and there's a DX, a big expedition going on right now, Clipperton Island, and so we'll be on 40 meter CW. Let me do that. Let's see if is that
Got
going
it.
to work.
Got it.
Okay, so let me I could probably do the full screen, but it's good to see the frequencies too, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the DX station. So there's some guys on this teeny atoll island. It's about 2,100 miles south of Utah, so similar to the whole North America, a little further obviously for Canada. And so they're transmitting right here on 7.013 megahertz. So that's their signal, right? Their big signal into Utah right now. I've got a 2-element beam pointed south right now, right at them. And I think they're working Europe. And so they're transmitting on that frequency. And long before the expedition, they would have published their operating plan. And they would have published the fact that for CW, they're going to be on 7.013 CW for 40 meters.
Okay.
And so that's what they're doing. They're calling CQ here, and then they're listening up. So they're going to call CQ. They need to call CQ about one time, right? As soon as everybody knows where they're at. So their call sign is Tango X-Ray 5 Sierra, and then they say up. So they'll call CQ TX5S up, and that just means they're listening up. So they expect you to transmit somewhere 1 kilohertz typically and above.
Okay.
And that's what's going on here. So just to visually see it, I mean, I could turn on the audio here. So I just said up. He just worked somebody and then said up. Now I
think he said up 4 even, didn't he?
Oh, did he say EU? I don't know. But
maybe it was EU.
He's clearly not working North America, or this would be a huge pileup. So
Yeah.
I think he's calling for Europe. There's calling.
So my question: how do you know how far up? So say they say up 1. Okay, do you zero beat right at up 1, or where are they actually listening?
Yeah, great question. Part
Can't
of the
wait
game,
for this answer. This is gonna be a good one.
part of the game is if everybody was calling on that up 1 kilohertz exactly, or even, I mean, if you've got 200 or 300 guys calling you within a kilohertz, or 1,000 guys or 2,000 guys calling you within a kilohertz, it would just be a howl on the DX end. And you might be able to pick some loud signals out, but it just isn't effective. And so they will pick out as many calls as they can, listening up 1, for example, but then you'll typically move. So they're constantly moving around. So they'll never tell you how many up other than maybe 1. I mean, if it's a big DXpedition, they're just going to say up, listen up. And so it could be up 1 kilohertz they're listening, or up 2 or 3, or anywhere between. At one point on Swains, I had a pileup spread out to about 23 kilohertz. So this huge
goodness,
pileup.
that's massive.
And so
Did you go up that high?
Oh yeah.
On the
Yeah.
response you did. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. You gotta manage me here, Kyle. Make sure we move on. But
No, keep going. It's good.
so
We're free
what
form
you
here.
want to do is you want to thin that pile up out, and the savvy operators that are trying to work you these days will have a spectrum display like I have, and so they can see who called you last. So if they can visually see who you last worked, and especially hear who you last worked, they've got a good idea where you are listening as the DX operator. And so that'll let you know, give you a much better chance of working the DX after they've worked somebody previously. But
So waterfalls are actually useful.
oh yeah, yeah. Here and dual receivers are useful too, because you want to have that dual receiver on like here, and then I can move right. This is where I'm transmitting.
So Max, whenever okay, so my question is, so the DXpedition is transmitting at 7.013.11, right?
Right.
And-
well,
and-
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, right there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And he's calling CQ. And then you have your second VFO
Right here. Yep.
right there, and you don't know where he's listening, right? So he's just saying up. And let's say that spectrum that he's could be listening is 5 or 6 kilohertz wide, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I don't understand is whenever you made mention of sometimes you can, and I've heard this from other people, is you can figure out kind of where they're going to be next based on who they just worked. And some people, they'll rotate and tell me if I'm right here. Some people on DXpeditions, they'll rotate up until they get to a certain point, and then they'll come back down and just keep working. So it's a pattern, right, that they keep working. And I guess my question is, let's say it's just a random pattern that they're working. They're not working up something that is on an algorithm, right? And they're just working. They're just taking their VFO and they're just listening. At that point, it just becomes dumb luck. You're just calling out to see if they are somewhere near that they can hear you. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah. So, I mean, that is a strategy, right? Hope is not a good strategy, though. We used to say that in software engineering. Hope is not a good strategy. If you can hear who they worked last,
okay,
you know where they listened last. And so as the guy operating on the DX side, typically they'll linger around close to that frequency to pick off 2 or 3 calls if they can, because the thrill for the DX operator, for me anyway, because I'm kind of a contester at heart, the thrill for me is to keep that rate up, right? I want to keep it above 200 an hour on CW if I can. And so you want to pick off stations as much as you can. And it's a lot easier if you can work 2 or 3 stations on one frequency. And another thing the DX operators will do is you listen to a wide bandpass. So I would listen to typically 1 kilohertz to 1.5 kilohertz of the pileup. And so I've got a wide bandpass. So if I work somebody, I could be working some guy that I hear up 500 hertz or 1,000 hertz, kilohertz up or down. Some guys will even go as wide as 2 kilohertz. And your brain just locks in on a particular signal, low tone or high tone, depending on the sideband of CW you're listening to. And you can stay on one frequency and work guys on different frequencies without turning the VFO, right? Without even changing the VFO here, right?
Because your brain becomes the filter.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and if you operate CW enough and you've become proficient at calling CQ and running stations, which is really scary for the CW operator, that's a scary thing to do. Your brain just locks in on a particular signal. So it's completely up to the DX operator. It got to where I would maybe move a kilohertz after every 2 or 3 Qs, or sometimes I'd move a kilohertz after 1 Q, or I'd get irritated by the pile up, you get it gets crazy sometimes. And so I just move to get out of the pileup and find somebody at a different frequency and work them. So there's kind of two approaches if you're chasing the DX. You're trying to figure out where they are listening based upon who they worked last. That's my style. That's what if you can hear who they're working, you're going to typically be able to work them pretty quick if you have a decent station. But a lot of guys just do the shotgun approach. They camp out on one frequency, and for hours on end, they'll just call the DX station. Every time the DX works somebody, they then throw their call out and listen. Hopefully they listen. A lot of them don't even listen. They just they keep calling even though they're working some other station. It's unbelievable. So that's kind of the two techniques, right? Is camp out and hope eventually that the DX station will come across you and work you, or listen, figure out who they worked last and try to figure out if they have a pattern going and try to tail end and get in on a QSO that they just completed.
Yeah.
And the few times that I've been successful working a DXpedition, and it's super exciting to work them mobile too. I really love doing that. I've done exactly what Ron K9 ID has said. Look for a spot where there aren't a lot of other stations to compete with, and I'll wait for that. Now, I don't have dual receive when I'm mobile. I have dual VFO, but not dual receive. So it's a little bit of back and forth switching to hear where they're working. But if I can tail end on somebody else, that's great.
Yeah, and that works too. So if you have a single receiver, you can ride that AB button, right, to listen to the pileup, listen to the DX. You can kind of figure it out too. Because I didn't have dual receivers when I first started out either. And I like the point you brought up about if you're hearing the pileup, which we're not here, they're working Europe, or I don't even know what they're doing right now. I'd have to listen.
Yeah,
doesn't look like they're doing anything. But you can kind of see the peaks and valleys and pick a spot that isn't as busy. And the DX station might be tuning slowly, right? If there's a big long pause, they're hunting around to find somebody. And so, you find a empty spot and they may come across you. But if you can hear the DX station, or if you can hear who they are working, and you can hear the station work the DX. Obviously, you can hear the DX, and you have a strong signal on CW. You're probably going to work them in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Like this guy, if they were working North America right now, I should be able to work. I haven't worked him yet on 40 meters, but it should take a few minutes at the most.
And do you have that your filter wide on your second VFO so you can hear a lot of the stations that are around you, or where? So therefore, you get a sense of all right. I heard AA0Z and they just came back from AA0Z, so I know that they're in this area, right?
As a hunter?
No. Maybe I said that incorrect. So if I'm trying to work the DXpedition, right, and I'm trying to figure out who they're working, the only way that I'm going to be able to figure out who I'm working is to really widen my filter, right? So I hear a lot of signals and my brain processes a lot of those signals. And if I hear AA0Z calling, and I see them and I hear them on the waterfall and they come back to me, therefore, as someone else who is listening can hear, oh, they just came back to Kyle or AA0Z, they're in that area. I'm going to throw out my call sign in that area too.
Yeah, that would be one way to do it. If you've got a Spectrum, and I've got a cushy, right, because I've got the dual receive.
Right.
I typically won't have that wide of a bandpass on my second receiver, right? So I don't know if you can see that on the screen.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Yep.
And so if you've got the Spectrum and you're listening to the DX and they just completed a QSO, they just called somebody, or they just called NG7M.
Yep.
And I send 599, thank you.
Oh, you're going to
I can see, and then I quickly can spin the dial or use the mouse and get right on. You can kind of, yeah.
Yeah, you're not actually, you might not be hearing them, but you're seeing them in the time domain on the waterfall.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the key, is you're hearing that DX come back. I'm sorry, you're hearing that station come back in the waterfall, and as long as everyone is playing by the rules, you can see that one person come back in the waterfall in the time domain. Therefore, you know where that person was calling that DX at.
Exactly. Like,
Right.
so that guy right here, you just saw, he just called. Let's say that he just finished working the DX. Now the DX just said up, so now you got guys calling. He's not calling EU. Let's try to work him here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're going to get left channel, right channel.
I might
The
do the
DX
same.
should be kind of
Turn it up.
okay. And now I'm going to have the pile up too here. So guys are calling him. Did he send EU? I didn't catch it. Was he calling for EU?
I didn't hear EU on that last transmission, at least.
So he just called an HK. Now he's calling. Yeah, he's
Oh,
calling
yeah.
for EU.
Yeah.
Still EU.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk about that. Listening for those 2 letters at the end of when they're calling CQ. If they have a EU, that means it's EU, and don't call them if you're a US based station.
Right. So this is right here what you're seeing. We're not hearing now. So TX5S, when he called CQ there, he sent CQ, TX5S, UP for up. He's listening up. And then after up, he sent EU. Da-da-da-da. Oh, and there he sent EU, then he sent UP. Typically, I'd do UP and then or up and then EU. So, right, I mean, guys will still call, right? You're still going to see guys from the U.S. call them.
Yeah.
Right.
But you can tell if he was allowing North America, this section of the spectrum would be just a pandemonium right now.
A disaster.
A wall
Yeah,
of
it would be
CW.
fun. That's the thrill though, breaking through that, right?
Right.
It's a thrill to work him when you've got several hundred guys trying to work him at the same time. Yeah.
So if they were listening for North America, they would send NA or US maybe?
No, or they just wouldn't send anything, right? They would
Oh,
just
okay.
call CQ, and then it's like anybody, anywhere.
And also
Yeah.
it depends on propagation where they're at, right? They're not going to if there's no propagation. The reason why they are calling for EU is because there's probably propagation from that location into Europe. And therefore that's because there's different times whenever propagation is better than other times into different parts of the world, right? So I would
Yeah.
assume that they're on a schedule and they know that propagation is probably pretty good or acceptable into EU, and that's why they are calling EU to ride that propagation, right?
Yeah, that's part of the equation. Another part of the equation is EU is going to need Clipperton Island much more than North America operators.
Ah, okay.
So it's much more juicy for a European to work Clipperton than one of us somebody in Canada or the U.S. Right? It's just, I mean, it's like shooting ducks in a barrel for us. So they're emphasizing, they're prioritizing EU because it's right. It's
Yeah.
more rare, right?
Right.
The EU guys, we would just beat them to death, right? They couldn't break through the North American pileup, like we say. Like if we're trying to work Africa from Utah, it's tough to break through the EU pileup, right? They've got the EU wall going. So we get to return the favor when it's South Pacific or south of North America.
Yeah, gotcha. I think we covered this a little bit, but whenever they say up or down, what would be the acronym for down? Do they ever go down from a
It's
listening
rare.
perspective?
Really
It's
rare.
rare. I have heard it. They would
I have
send DNs. Yeah, go ahead. I can let somebody else.
I've heard it too. Actually, kind of. I think on one of the warp bands or something like that, I heard somebody was going down for some reason.
It's pretty rare though.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's pretty rare. I
Um,
only heard it one time in my life, and I've been licensed the same amount of time as you, Max.
Oh, okay.
so it's typically they listen up, and then also do they listen less than 1 kilohertz? Is that a typical thing, or is it usually up more than 1 kilohertz?
I mean, if they haven't been operating, like they're new on that band, they would typically start 1 kilohertz up, and then, with CW skimmers, I mean, everybody's going to find you in seconds.
Yeah.
And then the smart ones probably would call a little above 1 kilohertz up, or even a little below. When I was operating, I'd even work guys a little, maybe 800 hertz up once in a while. I'd work all the way up the pile up, and then swing the VFO all the way back to the beginning and go back up the pile up. Typically, everybody's different, but I'd do that. I usually wouldn't go back and forth.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was your method? Was just to go incrementally upward until what? You just kind of hit the last guy, or was 10K
Yeah.
your limit, or what?
Yeah, you get to where nobody's there, and
then you just go back.
yeah, just go back, or you can go back down. I mean, I varied it. I didn't get into a real like clockwork routine. Sometimes I did. It just, everybody's different. Some of them are just completely random. They're like squirrels, right? They're trying to mix it up, so they spread the pile up out. The other thing that's hard, I found this in Swains too. So you had probably the most courteous operators in Asia, Japan. They're kind of the courteous ones. North America is pretty courteous. Europe's like chaos, right? They're, they would just call like crazy. But what the Europeans did much better than North America or Asia is they would spread out. In some cases, I could not get the pileup to spread out. And so sometimes I would send up 3, and then everybody it'd be like Pigpen's cloud behind his blanket, when he walks around. They would all move up 3 and start calling up 3. And I'm just simply trying to entice them to spread out, because I'm going to be dialing up the band. If they spread out and go to the end of the pileup, I'm going to pick them off. So I had a hard time. It was very frustrating at times. I could not get North America, especially later on in the DXpedition, where all the big DXers have already worked you. Now maybe you've got some new guys.
Big time DXers.
Yeah, the big time DXers, they've already worked you, and so they're not calling you anymore. And so you have, little pistol guys with smaller stations that were smart to wait till the pileups aren't as big, but they're all just camping out 1 kilohertz up because you say up. And if I said up 3, then they would all move up 3 and camp out there. I couldn't get them to spread out. So the idea is don't call right on top of the last guy they work. Move up, 200-300 hertz, or down 200 or 300 hertz, because he's probably going to be moving, and he or she, I should say, has a wide band pass. They can hear you if they're listening to a kilohertz or 1.5 kilohertz. They're going to hear you even if you move 500 hertz. So,
Can you talk a little bit about if you're the DXpedition and on that frequency you hear, you aren't listening to your own frequency, right? So you'll get folks invariably trying to call you on your frequency. And then, of course, you get the, I guess you call them the up police, right? So
yeah,
about 35 people send the letters UP, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason you're working split is right to manage hundreds of stations trying to contact you. It would not be efficient with everybody on the one frequency like you would have in a contest, right? So, like from Swains, for example, I don't think not one time did I ever listen to my transmit frequency. However, you can tell when there's deliberate QRM. You've got stations that are deliberately trying to jam your signal by transmitting when you're transmitting, or they're transmitting when you're not transmitting. I mean, they're just trying to mess up the pileup because, you've got some real winners out there, right? The only thing that you can tell when that's maybe going on is when you call a guy who is strong, a strong signal. You call him and give him a report, and he doesn't come back. So then you give the report again. He doesn't come back. You give the report again. He doesn't come back. Typically, that's a good sign that there's some deliberate QRM going on your transmit frequency.
Yeah.
And so, but as far as the police, they're annoying, and I wouldn't make a profession out of being a up cop, because most of the stations We've all done it. We've all transmitted on top of the DX because we're excited, right? You forget to put your rig into split, right? Or you forget to change the frequency, right? I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to match the DX frequency to my listen frequency. Right now I'm on the same frequency. They just matched. If I forget to dial up and transmit up, or I've got the split on right now. Do I have split on? I don't know if it shows it here. Should show it.
Yeah.
The arrow up
There it
here,
is.
right?
Yeah, right.
And so if I don't have split on, everybody's going to transmit on top of the DX. It's just going to happen. In fact, before we got on here, I sent my call one time. I thought I was in split and I wasn't. And I just cringed. Most guys will figure it out.
That happened to me last week.
Yeah, I mean, welcome to the club.
I called him like 3 times, and I'm like, oh no.
Hey, don't feel bad. We all do it, and then you figure it out typically.
Yeah.
So
the police helped.
The up police can help, right? But they can also interfere too, right? They're the ones causing QRM. The worst on sideband, right? Then you get the emotion of your voice in it. So sometimes the up police on sideband can get pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And you'll get the guys, if somebody just insists transmitting on top of the DX, you'll even have guys work them just to get rid of them.
Yeah.
They'll pretend like they're the DX and they'll work them so they go away because they just don't. They're not getting it after 2 or 3 minutes of calling on top of the DX station.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Hey, Max. So a few minutes ago, you mentioned a term that I'm pretty sure some of the audience doesn't know. What's a CW skimmer? What are some commonly used ones that people can use to find when they're chasing that rare DX?
Well, I mean, you can run your own, but I would let somebody. Well, if you're interested in that kind of thing, you could do some research and set up your own CW skimmer. So, problem is depending on your antennas and your setup at your home QTH, I mean, it's going to be some work. It'll cost you some money. What you really should do is learn how to use one of the DX clusters, one of the dozens and dozens, if not hundreds out there that have a worldwide feed of all the CW skimmers globally. So for example, if I want to know when TX5S comes on, I would be connected to a Telnet server and I would have a filter set to show me DX stations that are being spotted by stations in my surrounding states. Right? So I know I'm going to hear the DX. TX5S is not a good one for North America because everybody in North America can hear them. But you don't need to set up a skimmer because there's a lot of other stations like me that have been running one for years. I have a 9-band skimmer here that skims up to 192 kilohertz. And then any CW station that's calling CQ gets spotted to the DX cluster network, the RBN, reverse beacon network. There's a lot going on. I mean, that's a whole nother episode. We talked a little bit about it before, Kyle, but you need to invest some time on YouTube and look to see how a DX cluster works. And that'll help you get notified of what DX just came on the air, just started operating. And there's some really cool websites you can set up to text you, send you email. I mean, that's a whole nother episode.
We're going to have Max back on, I think on Thursday, to tell you the truth, Max, on CW Skimmers version 2.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll have to prepare for that one.
Cool. We got into, on my channel and also on Max's channel, his YouTube channel is in the link below. Go down and subscribe to Max's YouTube channel, and he does, it was many, many years ago, he does basically a tutorial on CW skimmers and Telnet servers. So he's going to be back on my channel, that's if he's got Thursday free, and we're going to do some more advanced stuff on Telnet stuff, Telnet skimmers. Sorry, Telnet clusters for the skimmer that is actually running at his house.
Yeah, so you have access to these, especially on the coast. There's not so many in the Midwest. There's a couple in Utah, and we have receive antennas, and we're skimming those bands 24/7 and feeding that data to a worldwide clearinghouse of spots, and you can easily, it's all free. You can get access to that data. Now, one more comment on CW skimmers. You could install your own CW skimmer that is listening when you're not transmitting. And some guys that can barely, if in some cases maybe not copy CW at all, they can use a local CW skimmer and decode in real time the DX station, because they're typically in the clear, right? And so the decoding routines, or the one built into your radio, is probably going to work pretty well with a strong DX station like TX5S right here. And so some guys that don't operate CW can end up working a CW contact with the DX station, even if they, right, as long as they can kind of hear their call sign or decode that the DX station called them, they can kind of time it right. It's not efficient. I wouldn't recommend you do that, but it is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other things that you talked about that I found fascinating was, so whenever someone gets done calling or working the DX, and you said don't call on that same frequency. It's almost like zero beating the guy that just got done working the DX. Is that something that you should go up, a certain amount and then call? So therefore, you don't call on the same frequency as the guy that just got worked. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good tip. So let's say this guy right here just worked the DX station, which is down here.
Right.
I'm wiggling so the DX is down here, and you heard the DX station work this guy right here.
Right.
And so rather than immediately just call right exactly where he was,
Yep.
Move down a little bit or move up a little bit. And if the DX is then hunting around, he doesn't come back to anybody, keep a move. This is what I do. I've found this to be effective. Maybe somebody could argue it's not that great, but I'll call here. If I don't hear him work another station, I'll move down a little more. I'll call again. If I don't hear anything, I'll move down a little more. I'll call again. Yep. Right? I'll incrementally move, and a lot of times you can catch him. Now the pilot's a little bigger there. I wonder if
let's see if he's calling NA or he's just calling.
Yeah.
I just muted myself and listened, and he was calling EU, but
nope, he's done now.
All right. You can tell by the waterfall. Look at my screen. It all of a sudden went nuts.
Go. Okay, let's go. Let's crank up the blower here.
Yes.
So now we got it going here.
Turn it up, Max.
I'm not going to use the mouse. There's somebody on his free. So he's working that sounds like he worked an Ireland station, an EI. So he's hunting, right? He's listening. So we can't, my beam's pointed south, right?
Turn it up a little bit more, Max.
Yeah, there you go.
I just threw out my call there. Okay, I'm gonna. Oh, is that him down here? See? Four CD. Is that him up here? I should have my mouse going here.
I think he's like right about there. Like, yeah, a little bit lower maybe.
A guy ending in WA. Can you hear my side tone?
No, not really.
A little bit.
That's as loud as it can go.
Okay.
That'd be cool if we could work him.
You got 2 elements on 40?
Yeah.
I've got 1.
See, now look how wide the pilot is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going all the way up.
There he is right here. Hey, so you move down a little bit.
Look at everybody.
What's endlessly fascinating is watching you decoding all of these things just from fragments.
Hang on. I thought he called me.
Oh, look at that wall. There's
Yeah,
no way. There's no way. Here, I'll zoom in on mine if anyone wants to see.
Yeah.
That's a full 1500 watts there.
Yeah, I'm doing about 750.
NK7i.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the presence of greatness. This guy is decoding like
There's
5
better-
or 6 streams at once. I'm sure of it.
Awesome.
And we
And
all
I
can
need
beat.
to-
Oops. We all
I
can
really
beat it
should
one
let.
day.
There he is right there.
Wow.
I think I could definitely watch this for an hour.
I'm fascinated.
Man, this is like my whole screen's turning red.
He just works at K3 station.
It's real.
So now you can see the guys are doing the same thing, right? So the pileup all moved here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, check out the history on mine where it's like going from here and then it shifts over a little bit more to there.
Yeah.
It's big.
Those are the folks in the know right here.
You're right.
These
the,
guys.
The guys in the red.
The guy is right over here.
I
Did you
worked
get
in.
it?
Yeah.
Sweet.
But I moved, right?
Nice.
I moved. That was really sloppy. Because I'm trying to listen to you guys too.
Yeah.
But
Dude,
Oh.
it doesn't matter how sloppy it is. I mean, you've just proved a point that we've been making on this live stream for a while. Get out there at whatever speed you're comfortable with. CW means never having to say SRI. I'm sorry for my sloppiness, right? And you've just proved it.
Like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's great.
so I know we're running up at the top of the hour here, but you can see guys are the guys that are, you know, they can hear who they're working. They all move close to the frequency where they last worked somebody, right?
Mhm.
There's kind of the cloud is right around here right now,
Right.
and so
You know, it's
that's what I was
interesting.
doing too. You know,
Looking at the history on the flex of how that blob moved to the left and then to the right and then back to the left. It's very interesting.
Well,
And
Max,
it all started down at 014.8, roughly.
I mean,
know?
Max just proved his point here, where if you're a good CW operator and you're watching the pile move and you're trying to figure out who that person just worked last, you should be able to
Have a
work
fighting
them.
chance.
Yeah, have a flying chance on working that person within with a reasonable time frame. What that pile up started, I think at 8 my time, 8:44. It is now 8:55. We worked that station. Max worked that station within 10 minutes. And look how many people are calling.
He's
I mean, I
got a
could try
pretty
to-
cool station, though.
1,500 watts in a two element 40 meter beam helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're 2,000 miles away though, right? I mean, this is not a typical tough kind of a chase, but
Yeah.
you are dealing with a lot of other strong signals. Look at the pileup, right? So the pileup is going from, he's transmitting at 13 kilohertz up, and there's guys up, I don't
All the
know,
way to
where-
19.
yeah, it's not that huge wide, but there's a
Almost
lot
20.
of strong signals concentrated in the area. Of course,
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty
Interesting.
crazy, huh?
Yeah. Very interesting.
So
Very good.
Well, I'm in Chicago. I have a wire up at 23 feet, and I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah, chase them.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, give it a chase. I should make the waterfall smaller. You can't even. The signals are so strong there, right there.
Yeah,
All
they just
20
look
over
like
9.
they look like blobs on the screen.
And I'm sure there's some tricks of the trade I don't know, right? I mean, somebody could, you're always got to be willing to learn a new trick, or, I may have. That was pretty sloppy when I worked him there. I put him in the log, but I had to like scramble back to the frequency I thought I called on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's another thing. You
yeah.
jump around too fast, and then all of a sudden he calls you, and you're like, you already switched over somewhere else.
Yeah, you got to be careful about
You're like,
that.
uh-oh.
Yeah, you got to be kind of careful there.
Jason asks, can you see this on Anon or Hermes Light? I don't have either one of these. I'm assuming those are two
yes.
SDRs, right? So if you've got
Yeah.
an SDR with a waterfall, you can see this, right?
Yep.
That could even be an SDR play.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't even have to have an SDR on your radio. All you need to do is be able to receive and display that on an SDR, right? So you can have an SDR play, right? And then you could get that what's that that device that MFJ makes that doesn't blow out your front end.
The 1708 SDR switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you came up with that fast. That was impressive.
Dang, I got to know that number at the candy store.
Oh yeah. But
So
yeah, I think
have-
they've got that Thetis software or something like that. It's pretty nice. I almost like it better than the Flex.
So, I mean, I could work him with another club call or something, but
K9KJ Club Call.
yeah, there you go. Yeah. Ironically, right, you could, I mean, if you were remoted in, it would count, right? You could remote in here and be just perfectly fine. But yeah, look at the pileup. We knew when they started allowing North America guys to call. It just was.
Yeah, you called that right away, and I was like, oh, I just heard him call EU, and that must have been his last one.
Could have been, yeah, because more guys started calling.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Aaron, did we get all of your questions answered? I know that you had a few questions.
Yeah, no, I think we covered it, really.
Good deal. Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour. Max, anything else that you wanted to cover, or points that you had that we wanted to talk about?
Yeah, just real quick, I forgot to mention this. This is the hardest thing, I think, for new HF operators. Spend your hard-earned money on the antenna, right? You're far better off with a TS590 GS or something. It's an amazing radio for the money. You get them used for $650, $700, and put your, you don't have to buy a $6,000 K4, right? You don't need this radio I have. You're far better off working on your antennas. It's hard to do because the radios are flashy, but you can't work or you can't hear.
Yeah.
Well said. So, radios are flashy, antennas are boring, but that's where the money's made.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all about the antenna, right? Like I always use N2IC. Steve, November 2, India Charlie's down in New Mexico. He uses a pair of TS590s, and he works SO2R, but he has an amazing it's a great antenna for him compared to what I have. He has some land, but he just kicks butt, right?
He's loud everywhere.
He doesn't have $12,000 worth of radios, right? He's got a couple $1,000s worth of radios, and he kills it because he's a good operator and he has good antennas.
Yeah.
True.
Very good.
Yeah. Also, don't go slow on CW when calling the DX station. They can copy 30 words a minute minimum. So if you have a long call sign, let her rip.
Yeah, that's good. Ironically, though, that is a strategy to call a little slower because, trust me, if you have a strong signal and you're trying to break a pileup, as the operator, if I'm on the DX end, if somebody's strong and sending slow, I want to get rid of them. Because they're right. If they're strong and slow, I'll pick them off. I'll just work them because they're strong and they're slow.
Yeah.
So,
Get them out of there.
and they may be a great CW operator, but they know that I may pay attention to that slow, loud call more than a, 35 words a minute. I was probably sending there at, I'm guessing around 35, 34. I don't know what I was, somewhere in there.
So, legitimate question is it not good form to chase DX with a straight key?
I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Is it not good form to chase DX with a straight key?
Oh, I mean, it's okay. I mean, you should be able to send okay, right? I mean, you don't want to. I mean, it's funny what your ear will pick out on the DX side. I mean, if some guy with a, swingy bug, right? You've got a lot of guys with bugs. Sometimes those, it just sticks out like a sore thumb compared to an electronic keyer. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's all fair game, right? I mean, if you want to do it with a straight key, why not?
The nice thing that I've noticed whenever I've worked DX like this is you get really good at hearing your call sign, even at fast speeds, right? So as
My
long
number
as
one rule.
right, so I mean, I cannot copy at 35 words a minute, but whenever someone sends a A0Z at 35 words a minute, I know that it's me, that they're calling me. And all I need to do is send a 599 back and maybe a TU, and I've made that
done.
contact. Right?
That's a good point. And a lot of guys are in that boat, right? They can, you don't have to be some hotshot CW operator. Just copy your own call sign at different speeds. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you have a skimmer, some guys will use that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. That's where the skimmer comes in, right?
And that's a whole nother episode. I know you can actually see a spectrum and it'll show all the call signs in the pileup, right? You'll see all of them.
Yep. All right. Very good. Well, thanks, Max, for your insight on working some DX stations. I know that I've learned some new terms and some new things, so that's exactly what this is all about. Anything coming up on your YouTube channel that you want to promote, or anything ham radio related that you want to throw out there?
Oh, I mean, if you want to hear, you don't want to toot your own horn, but I did an interview with Whiskey 1 Delta Echo Delta. Kevin, he has a.
Oh, Kevin, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Kevin,
That's awesome.
great. I mean, just the nicest guy ever, and he's got a really good thing going with his channel, interviewing. He's kind of fallen into the DX contesting world.
Yes, it's great.
He's
I
got
love
some
it.
good interviews. So I've got an interview up there that kind of gives you a little of my backstory, and then I think he does all the work. I mean, ironically, his production work and his editing is top notch. He did a video more recently with me, and we did a kind of a behind the scenes, behind the QSOs, he called it, for Swains, where I talk a lot about what goes on behind the scenes and how you get there and all that stuff. So
very cool.
Go check it out.
It was a great video. I watched it.
Yeah, subscribe to his channel. He's got some amazing. I feel privileged to even be on his channel. He's done some great interviews.
He has. He's done some really. He makes sure that he gets the best guests. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it too. I mean, he's had some pretty great guests.
He was desperate for me.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thanks, Max, for hanging out with us for an hour and giving us your insights. Awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Subscribe to Kyle's channel and give him the thumbs up.
Yeah,
Yes.
give me some thumbs up here. We got 65 people watching and only 35 likes. So let's get those likes up. TJ, what's real quick? What's coming up on your channel? You've been cranking out some videos, man.
A little bit. I've just been kind of like responding to some folks' comments on my channel. It's like, hey, when are you going to do something about a bug? So I pulled out a couple of my bugs and just did a video on how to adjust it, tune it, and what that looks like. And then I also have a video. I was listening to somebody on the radio, and I've got a bad example of why you need to be cognizant of your spacing between letters and not running them together. Makes it a difficult copy. It took me a couple of minutes to figure out this person's call sign, and I don't want to throw them under the bus. So I'm like, all right, should I not publish this video? But I think I will anyways.
Very good. Aaron, what's coming up on you got some more I love putting Aaron's videos on in the background, and I'll go in the other room and I'll copy all of the CW. It's great learning material. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, hey, more of it. Every 2 or 3 days, I try to put out a video. Really just record my activations and upload them. Not a whole lot to it, so more of that coming. As always.
Very good.
Parks on the Air is great.
Yes, it's getting more people on the air. It's great. And then Vince has got a whole new series of CW tips for the new CW operator that are starting to air.
I do. I have found a series of experts and one turkey. I'm the turkey, by the way. And I'm just asking one question. What's your best CW tip for a new operator? And I've released those as a playlist on my YouTube channel, which I've just posted in the chat. And they are, except for one person who shall remain nameless, they are 2 minutes or less. So one of them went 12 seconds over, but I'm not going to alter the template just to get it under 2 minutes.
And I think they had like 5 tips also. So
one person did have multiple tips. That's okay. I'll take multiple tips. I'll break them into multiple videos. Usually, I didn't this time. Anyway, Kyle is a great sport, and thank you so much. And several of you here on this call, as my time permits, we'll do some recording, and I'll add you to the series.
Hey, cool. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. A quick programming note. We are, typically this program runs every 2 weeks. But in 2 weeks, that will be the 5th of February. I will be on my way to Orlando to go to Hamcation. So we will not have a new CW Operators Roundtable on the 5th of February. We will reconvene back on the 19th, and that's when the next CW Roundtable will occur. So put that in your calendar. Sorry for missing the week, but I'm going to be on the road. It's going to take 2 days to drive down to Florida. I don't do it in one, so I will see you in Hamcation. I know Ron K9ID. He's got a booth down there. Yep. If you need T-shirts or hats or I can't remember. Does Ron? Do you guys just
name badges?
Yeah, badges.
For sure.
Go and see Ron down at Hamcation. His
awesome quality stuff.
Yep. Go buy something from Ron in his booth, and if you see me down at Hamcation, come up and say hello, and maybe we'll get a picture with you, and we'll put it on Twitter or X or whatever that thing is called. So confusing. So anyway. That is it from St. Louis and new CW Operators Roundtable. Thanks, everyone. We will see you in a month. 73.
And smarter.
3.
CW on, my friends.